Let's talk about what the jury has been shown so far and why it matters. Okay? Number one, we know that Charles changed the beneficiary of his life insurance policy. We had not one, but two witnesses testify of that: Kay Woodcock and Nancy Joe.
Did you have a conversation with Charles about the beneficiary of his life insurance?
Yes, it was early February when came here to help him with JJ, and he said, "Look, I'm going to take Lori off as beneficiary, and I'm going to put you as the beneficiary." And I was like, we talked about maybe a minute and a half about it, and I was like, okay, whatever. I really don't want to be that person, but okay. And I never followed up to see if he changed. I didn't know until I got the phone call after he was killed.
During any of your conversations with Charles, did you ever learn that he had a life insurance policy?
I did.
As you are talking, did Charles really just tell you a lot about his life?
A lot about his life, yes.
Were you almost surprised at the amount of detail of his life that you learned?
Yeah.
Did you understand whether or not any changes had been made by Charles to the life insurance policy?
He told me that he had changed his beneficiary to his sister, Kay, and as he was proceeding to tell me some of the things that were going on, I suggested to him that maybe he should let Lori know that he had changed the beneficiary on his life insurance to Kay.
Why would you tell him that?
Because of the things that he was describing to me and his concerns for his safety and the thought that money would come into play.
So you have those two very strong women testifying that Charles changed his beneficiary. Okay, then you think as a juror, like, that's pretty key. Why would he change the beneficiary of his life insurance? Something was there. The next thing we know, number two, Lori compares herself to Nephi. Some of you are saying, who in the world is Nephi, and why is Lori comparing herself to Nephi? Witnesses were asked those questions. Specifically, Adam Cox was asked to explain who Nephi was, and Trina Kay, the prosecutor, in the first minute of her opening statement, she brought up Nephi and Lori comparing herself to the prophet Nephi.
So I'm going to need you to stay close to me the next couple days. Mel, too. She can't go to Utah. They're planking some kind of intervention, but want Mel out of the way, so I'm left alone. I need to come get the stuff at your house tomorrow and secure it. Lots to do. Thanks for standing by me. It's all coming to a head this week. I will be like Nephi, I am told, and so will you. Lori Daybell, the woman seated over here, wrote this to her brother Alex Cox on July 9th of 2019, 2 days before they killed Charles Vallow. Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell, and Alex Cox all believed that those who disagreed with them were dark, possessed by evil spirits, sometimes called Z's or zombies. Sometimes they had names for these evil spirits, like Ned. Lori, Chad, and Alex used religion, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and a story of Nephi, a prophet, who was directed by the Holy Spirit to kill Laban, to obtain brass plates and secure the long-term prosperity of Nephi's descendants. Lori used this religion and the story of Nephi as justification to kill Charles Vallow, just like Nephi killed Laban. On July 9th of 2019, Lori Vallow invoked Nephi when she messaged Alex to provide them with that religious authority to kill Charles. After months of trying to get rid of him, they were finally ready to be like Nephi. You told us that you are LDS. Have you ever taught Sunday school?
Yes.
Can you tell us about the story of Nephi?
Nephi? Well, Nephi was a prophet in the Book of Mormon. It's the first chapter. He was a prophet, very humble and faithful servant of the Lord. Ironically enough, his brothers tried to kill him at one point. But he actually ended up going to Jerusalem to get these plates back, and he was run off, came back, and then went back again because the Lord asked him to. And when he did, the King Laban, who was actually a wicked king, was laying on the ground drunk in front of him, and Nephi was told to kill Laban.
Who was he told by?
The spirit, or God.
So for any of the jurors who don't know who Nephi is now, they do. They understand the relevance of Nephi to this case and why Lori was comparing herself to Nephi. Third thing we know so far from this case, that Lori believed and told people that Charles was possessed and she was trying to cast out evil spirits out of his body.
Do you recall having Lori ask everyone to help cast out as to a specific person?
Yes.
Can you tell us who that was?
It was her husband, Charles.
Did it stand out to you, her asking you to cast out as to her husband?
Yes, it stood out to me.
During this weekend, did Lori talk to you about her husband, Charles Vallow, being possessed?
Yes, she did.
What do you recall about her talking about her husband being possessed?
I recall that she spoke about her husband being possessed by an evil spirit, and she named the evil spirit.
Do you recall what the name was?
Yes.
What was it?
It was Ned.
Did Lori still express that her husband, Charles, was possessed?
Yes.
Well, the fourth thing that they know is that Lori vanished in early 2019, had an affair with Chad Daybell, and Charles wanted a divorce.
When you came out here, did you see Lori?
No.
When you came out here, did anyone know where Lori was?
No, nobody was talking about where she was. Nobody would tell Charles where she was.
So your brother was trying to find where she was?
Yes, he was.
How long did Charles have JJ where he's looking for Lori and can't find her?
Well, that portion of the time was 58 days, and I knew how many days it was because every day Charles would say something. He would tell me.
So he was counting them.
He would count them.
Did you know he was still married?
He told me he was in the process of a divorce.
Okay. Did you know whether or not he was living with his wife at that time?
He was in Houston. His soon-to-be ex-wife was here. When he came to Arizona, he was meeting a realtor to find a place to live when he was here as well.
And again, those are things also that text messages could bring in. The fact that in the email that Charles Vallow sent to Tammy Daybell saying, I know that your husband is having an affair with my wife. And this is the email. I have a feeling this next week we'll hear more about text messages and emails. And we'll hear, I assume, from the guy that lays out Lori's movements right after Charles was shot for that hour, that morning of July 11th. He testified in Idaho with great maps pinpointing the locations, and I have a feeling, well, he's on the witness list, so I imagine they'll do that again. So we know, the juror knows so far, just think in your mind if you only know these four things. Charles changed the beneficiary of the $1 million policy because he was worried for his life months before he died. Lori believes she's a prophet in the Book of Mormon, or like a prophet, and she must do as the Lord's command. This specific prophet killed someone who was evil. Lori believes Charles is evil. He's possessed. She's trying to cast evil spirits out of him. Lori vanishes, has an affair, and Charles wanted a divorce and was telling people this marriage is over because it's too far gone, and was taking steps to have her lose her temple recommend, the most important thing to her. The fifth thing that the jury knows so far is that Charles and Adam were planning an intervention. I mentioned the temple recommend thing there just a minute ago. Adam talked about this.
Did Charles have some idea on how he thought he might be able to get Lori back into the LDS faith?
Yes.
What did you understand that to be?
Charles just thought that Lori was going overboard and that she was going to the temple like 5 times a week, and that's not normal in our religion, and that she was going a little off the wall. So he figured that if she got her temple recommend taken away from her, that she would come back to normal, who she was before she started in all this things that she was believing.
And of course, Adam went on to talk about that he ended up not seeing the stake president, the person who could take away that temple recommend, because the stake president was not at the church the night that Charles died, and then Charles died and everything obviously changed at that point. So the jury is aware that there was some sort of intervention plan, that Charles was taking all of these steps, was worried for his life, and then was killed. These things are stacking up bit by bit by bit. The puzzle is coming together, puzzle piece by puzzle piece. Another thing the jury knows, we know about that he played baseball and the bat. What was specifically on the bat, we heard a lot of talk about the bat, that he hit Alex in the back of the head and caused him to have a little bit of blood on his head, even though he had sunglasses that never came off when he came out of the house that day. We know a little bit about that, but really when it comes down to it, the expert from the police department testified about the thumbprints, the fingerprints on the bat. And here, I'll play her clip, but before I do that, here's what Kay Woodcock said about Charles being a baseball player and the bat.
He did, I believe he was drafted in the early 70s into the Houston Astros minor league.
So when you were growing up, did you see your brother playing baseball?
I was raised at a baseball field. If it wasn't Charles, Jerry played for years, my other brother, but Charles stuck with it, and that's how he got to college with a degree, with a scholarship.
So you got stuck many a night and a weekend having to be at the ball field with your brother.
Yes.
What position did your brother play?
He was a pitcher. He was very, very good. He was a left-handed pitcher, and they're very hard to hit against.
Okay. Did he bat right or left-handed?
He was left-handed.
Did he do everything left-handed?
Yes.
For both impressions, in my analysis, I determined that both impressions were NVID, which stands for no value for identification. This means that the latents lack sufficient clarity, quantity, and or uniqueness to identify, but may be suitable for exclusion. So the impressions were possibly excludable, but I would not be able to identify who made those impressions.
So there were the 2 prints on the bat. Unfortunately, they were not able to match to a specific person. Maybe, I don't know if the material, if someone were to grip it more firm, the bat, and swing, you'd think that maybe there might be more prints on it. You could always wipe them off, though, I guess. But anyway, that's what we know about the bat. The other thing we know, while talking about what was in that house, the bat, we know about the gun that Alex used to shoot Charles, specifically that Alex used to shoot Charles twice. This was one of the very first things the jurors heard with Trina Kay at the beginning during opening statements. Here's what she said.
This is where Alex Cox shot him 2 times. The first shot to Charles Vallow was to his chest. It exited out his back. Charles Vallow fell to the ground. He put his left hand to this wound, and blood transferred onto it. You will hear from the medical examiner that this shot went through his heart, and that a person can take seconds to up to 2 minutes to die from that type of wound. You will hear that a person can still talk and move after they're shot in the heart. And we know Charles was able to move since he put his dominant left hand on his chest and transferred that blood to his hand. You will see that. As Charles lay on the floor of 5531 South Four Peaks Place, Alex Cox stood at his feet and fired a second shot. That shot entered his abdomen, and it exited his left shoulder. The angle was significantly upward. Dr. Baumgartner, who is the medical examiner, will tell you that this wound was shored. You will learn that shored means that there was something hard behind that wound. So when the bullet exited it, it caused a different tearing pattern than the other wound that exited Charles's back. It is this shored wound, this exit on Charles's left shoulder, that shows us that there was nothing accidental about this second shot.
Another thing that we learn is Lori texted people that Charles was dead. What does that mean? She didn't call them. She didn't call Charles's sons to say your dad is dead. She texted them and waited a day.
I was at a nail salon in Lake Charles, my granddaughter and I, and I got a call from his oldest son, Cole, and he said, "Hey, what is going on? I just got a text from Lori, and she said Dad's dead." And I said, "Wait, what did you just say?" And he told me again, and I said, "Something's wrong with that. That can't be true." And I said, "Have you tried to call her?" And Cole's like, "Yes, she won't. I'm trying calling. She's not answering." He was freaking out, and I was like, "Okay, Cole, just give me a minute. Let me think about this. Let me see, and I'll call you back. I promise, as soon as I can figure this out." So I called my husband to tell him, and he said, "Okay, well, I told him what the Cole said, and he said, 'Hey, let me call you back in a minute.'" And so I was still at the nail salon trying to get out of there, and he called and he said, "He's dead." I Googled him, and he's dead. Alex killed him yesterday. And I mean, that was just like, it was horrible. I have to call my siblings and let them know. Thank you. And everybody was freaked out. I didn't know what to do. But I did call Cole back and let him know that it was true, and just was telling him, let's keep in touch. You find out something, I find out something, we'll let each other know. And
Did you try to reach out to Lori?
I tried calling, texting Charles. I tried calling, texting Lori. And at some point, she texted me. She returned a text, something like, "I'm having to deal with a lot of stuff, and I'm busy." And she was too busy to even call his family to say that he was dead by her brother killing him.
I would say that anytime someone on the witness stand cries, the jurors remember. We remember when they get emotional, especially in a trial where there hasn't been much emotion. Lori cried a little in her opening statement. Kay really cried. And that's memorable. Now, if someone's up there crying the whole time, you're going to remember them as an emotional witness, but we haven't seen that. So Lori texted people to say that Charles was dead. Another thing we know, Lori and Chad are married. And that was brought about, again, with Trina Kay in her opening statement, talking about how Lori Vallow wanted to be with Chad Daybell.
In July of 2019, Lori Vallow was married to Charles Vallow. Lori Vallow lived here in Arizona, Chandler. Charles Vallow lived in Texas. In July of 2019, Lori Daybell was Lori Vallow, married to Charles Vallow. In July of 2019, Lori Vallow wanted to be Lori Daybell, wife of Chad Daybell.
So we know that Lori and Chad are married, but we'll get to it in a minute. The jury doesn't know. We know, they know, but they don't know where her husband is now, her fifth husband. They might be waiting for him to testify. They might be waiting for him to show up in support of her in the courtroom. They probably have no clue that he's locked up on death row in Idaho. We'll get to that in a second. The other thing they know, Alex is dead. And you know who offered this up? They learned this in the first hour of this trial. Lori Vallow said this.
The evidence will show you that my brother, Alex Cox, passed away on December 12th, 2019, almost exactly 5 months to the day after Charles, my husband, passed away. The evidence will show that Alex passed away from a blood clot in his lung.
Objection again.
I'll sustain the objection. It's not relevant for this matter.
So those are just, the jury obviously knows a lot more. We've been through 12 witnesses. We've had 4 days of testimony. Here is what the jury doesn't know that you and I know if you've been following the case. If you haven't been, I'm about to give you some news. You ready? I'm a news reporter. Here's some news. One, they don't know that JJ and Tylee are dead. That's like the big number one thing of, well, when are they going to find out? How are they going to find out? We'll see if they find out. They don't know that Tammy Daybell is dead. They don't know that Chad, as I mentioned a minute ago, is on death row. They don't know that Lori is serving 3 life sentences in Idaho. They don't know that Chad and Lori fled to Hawaii, refused to talk to the police or the media, yours truly, and were living their best life over there. They don't know that. While their kids were dead in Chad's backyard. And they don't know so much more. Will they learn these things? Well, the judge has said that if Lori testifies, there is a condition or some sort of statement that he needs to tell the jurors about her criminal convictions. The depth of that, we don't know. Will he simply say, just so you know, the defendant is serving time in Idaho on 3 felonies? Or will he say the defendant was found guilty of 3 counts of murder and she's serving 3 life sentences in Idaho with no chance of parole? Because you say that, and the jury is probably like, oh, okay. So we'll see what they learn. They're going to learn a lot over the next week, over the next 4 days.